right, hey everybody, and great to be back with you for another discussion working through the book Mama Parapologetics. We're almost wrapping up here, a couple weeks left, and we're now in chapter 14 towards the end of the book. And this topic is a fun one for me, being, I guess, a guy talking to mostly a ministry of moms. We're talking about feminism this week, and I'll do my best, as I have been this whole semester, to offer kind of a fair and balanced thoughts about it. And again, relying mostly a lot heavily on your book, especially this week, which was written by women, their perspective. And hopefully you can give some insights that help you as you work through it and read it together. So why don't we do this? Let's start with the whole idea, following your chapter of this book, about the idea of when we talk about the feminism as a word or concept. I thought it was an important distinction that your book made in saying that this is a difficult word because what does it mean? There are so many people out there who use this term, and we're not always sure exactly what we're referring to. If you were to just take the word feminist and type it into a Google search, you'd get all kinds of different ideas and thoughts. If you went to a dictionary, the dictionary definition of feminism is a person, any person, male or female, who believes that women should have equal rights and equal protection under the law, equal opportunities. That's the definition of feminism. And to be honest, I don't know very many Americans who wouldn't say that, meaning, are we all feminists? And then it's like, yeah, feminism is that all it means? It seems like it means a lot more, at least in our country. And so that's what the book gets into, especially when we start talking about church and Christianity, where it's like, well, I believe in equal protection, but do we believe women should be pastors and opportunities, all those kind of things? There's a lot here. So kind of the base groundwork of this concept is the idea that there are sort of two branches of feminism. It all started at the same place. It all started with women and some men looking at the current state of the world and saying women should have every right men have. They should be able to vote. They should be able to, do any jobs they want to do, whatever. And so it started this movement called feminism to create opportunities and equal rights for women. But the movement kind of shifted and split, and your book kind of walked through the history of that a little bit, to what you have now. And these words, take them or leave them, they talk about the difference between like an egalitarian feminism versus more of a maternal feminism. And egalitarian feminism it's not just about equality. It's not just about, opportunities. It's about removing differences between men and women. It's about getting rid of this idea of too gender specific and getting rid of the idea that men and women are different, that there's any biological or physiological difference, and just making all people equal, egalitarian. Maternal feminism wants to protect the idea that women are different than men. There are different physical differences about us. There are different cultural differences. Some of them are good, need to be maintained. We should all be equal. We should all have equal opportunities and equal rights in the law, but we are different, and it's okay. And here's where it gets dicey, because when we even talk about feminism today, it's like, well, which of those things are we talking about? And the loudest voice for feminism today has definitely moved more egalitarian, and oftentimes even sort of rejects what we might call maternal feminism. And it's not always clear even today what someone means when they say that. If you were to ask me, Pete, are you a feminist? I would say absolutely. I totally believe women should have complete equal rights, complete opportunities as anybody else. Do I believe there's distinction between male and female? Well, now we've created a different issue. And the reason why I think this is so important is if we just look at history, right? You start with the 19th Amendment, early 20th century, movements towards women's equality, women's suffrage, all these ideas. We arrived at a place, at least in the West, in our country, where women were given these rights. Women were given the right to vote and all these different things. A lot of the systems that were built up that kept women from doing things that they wanted to do, from participating in society the way that men do, have come down. We currently live in an age where, in terms of the law, in terms of society, we've reached a level of like, you can't, as an employer, disparage or distinguish between men and women. We've come to that place. However, at the same time, over the past few years, the past couple decades, there has to be an acknowledgement that despite the changes in the law, despite the fact that women have been given access, women have been given freedoms and equality under the law, it hasn't actually led to complete equality in the way that men and women live their lives, especially like say in the workforce. And so why do men continue to dominate high paying fields, CEOs, certain scientific fields, things like that? And feminism now is sort of split. It's like, well, how do we explain that it seems though, even though we've created laws to create equality, there still doesn't seem to be full equality? And there's really two answers for this. You have the egalitarian answer that men and women are fully equal and there's no difference. And you have the more maternal that, well, we're equal to the law, but we're different. The maternal feminism would argue that, well, of course, there's always going to be differences. You can have, just like we talked about Marxism last week, it's one thing to say we want equal opportunities, but we're never going to have equal outcomes because men and women are different. There's an inherent difference in us, both in our physiology and our biology, testosterone, things like that, and also in our upbringing and the family, home life, and all that kind of stuff. And so you could say, look, it's good to create a society where people are equal, but that doesn't mean you're not still going to have, by and large, more women choosing to prioritize family or children or something, maybe over careers and on a grand population scale. We're not talking about individuals. We're talking about, among 300 million people. Generally speaking, you're going to see a percentage of off differences of maybe more men are prioritizing this in their life because of the way they're wired, things like that. And generally speaking, yes, we can create equality of opportunity, but because men and women are different, there's always going to be differences in outcome. Again, this is very similar to some of the stuff we talked about Marxism. On the other hand, you have more the egalitarian, no differences. We're all equal. There's no biological difference between men and women. Every difference that currently exists is due to a problem of the system. And remember, that kind of harks back to our whole Marxist communist talk as well. It's the system. There are broken systems that are keeping women down that we need to break through. Even encouraging a woman that it's a good thing to stay home and be a mother is a bad thing because that's a broken system. We want full equality. And our problems, the problem that females face is oppression, male dominance. It doesn't even matter that you create laws. You still have to change more and more and find ways to overcome the patriarchy and create more equality in outcomes. And this is a tense discussion, right? And here I'm a guy talking about this with you. What are my thoughts on it? It's difficult. It really is. Women today, it's kind of like women have broken into every single field pretty much that men used to dominate, maybe except some forms of professional sports, I don't know, or certain military areas. We have laws in place that require equal protection. But again, there's still this lingering question over whether our continued differences are created and natural and innate in us biologically, or it's oppression from the outside. Sometimes this spotlights real problems. And again, just like we saw last week in communism and feminism, these two chapters, the chapters kind of fit together because it's like, is what's wrong because of the outside or is it something more inside? And are the differences in men and women real and intended to be? And should we embrace them? Or do we still have oppressive systems that have to come down? So I think generally speaking, most people sort of embrace what we might call maternal feminism. It's kind of generally accepted that women should have equal rights, maybe in some forms of ultra-conservative Christianity or whatever. But generally the message, though, that's becoming part of what is today often labeled feminism is that any differences between men and women are not real. They're not biological. They're not inherent to us. They are part of a broken system, people of oppression, men trying to control. And so all differences have to be removed for full equality to ever bring about the kind of world that we want. Again, sound familiar from last week? And so some of the messages that you hear within that are men are out to control women, and there's a war on women. The only reason some women even want to stay home with their kids is because powerful men have blinded them and brainwashed them into thinking that was a good thing. And real work is out in the market, not at home with kids. We talk a lot of today, and even this like ideas of like abortion and women's rights and all those kind of things have almost become inseparable because like it's men trying to control and get their way. Even though abortion kills more girls than boys, but that's another topic. And this tends to even look at things like biology. It's almost like it's unfair and we've got to overcome it. We got to find even drugs or surgeries that can make us equal because biologically it doesn't seem like we are. And the female having to have babies is a disadvantage that we have to help her overcome in order to be fully equal in the marketplace. This is kind of a message that's out there. It's also a message that women can do everything that men can do. We're fully equal. There's no differences. It's not just they should have the opportunity to do, but no, it's they're able to. There's no inherent difference, despite what maybe history, sociological studies, biologies, our own eyeballs tell us. There's no difference. And this can even go as far as to say, like, men aren't even needed. And oftentimes feminist circles minimize men and make them kind of goofy, dumb guys that you don't need them in your life. This message of feminism, again, there's sort of these two branches of it, has moved away from equal rights and into something else, which this is now whatever episode. We've been talking about this the whole semester, haven't we? The way that what oftentimes happens in these ideas is we see our adversary, our enemy, taking something which has good to it, has real truth to it, but pushing it too far, twisting it too much. There is good in feminism, and it's the good that I ascribe to for sure. And the good is this. Let's talk about this. It is unquestionably true that the history of humanity has been largely dominated by men, and that has often led to abuse and mistreatment and oppression. Absolutely true. And for that reason alone, I would label myself a feminist. And I want to raise girls who would see themselves as feminists. We need to overcome any kind of oppression or mistreatment of women. And it's why it's such a difficult conversation, because there's this truth behind it. Men are more aggressive. We have a lot more testosterone, especially when we're younger. It makes us a bit more, there's studies that show that men tend to be more, take a hold of things, and we're physically stronger oftentimes. And throughout history, that has led to men often taking control and being oppressive, not considering women and how they feel or think, building work cultures and environments that are about the men and how men like to joke and things, and not thinking about how different women are and how they want. Like, all of that stuff is true. Also, some of the differences that we talk about between men and women are kind of maybe cultural. There are things about, well, that's men and that's women. It's like, well, is it, or is that just kind of our culture? Men dress this way, women dress that. Well, it's not biological how you dress. Men are emotional, or women are emotional and men aren't emotional. I know a lot of emotional men. I know a lot of women that aren't overly emotional. Again, some of the differences are overblown or overstated. And there are stereotypes that we've created that feminism wants to take down. And one of the things that I'm now a father of 3 girls, and you say, like, well, Pete, what do you want for your girls? I would say I want them to be able to do whatever God calls them to do and they're passionate about. And I hope I want to be in a society that the doors are open for them to do whatever they want. I don't want stereotypes or, oppression or closed doors and glass ceilings keeping them from anything. But that means I want them to also be free to be moms and stay home and celebrate differences or whatever. So I do want that. And I acknowledge the good of feminism that says, let's break down walls that keep women from doing what they want to or feel called to do. And oftentimes we do need laws in place that protect women because, again, generally speaking, they can often be at a disadvantage to stronger males or the systems that are in place. So again, right off the bat, we acknowledge that there's a reason why feminism is even needed, because male dominance has been a reality for much of human history. So the feminist movement was needed. It was important. It's good. As a father of 3 daughters, I'm glad it happened. But like so many of this stuff, it can go too far. And there's some negatives to it that we need to sift through. We need to chew on it. And there's some things we need to spit out as not being good here. And then the first thing is the same thing we mentioned last week. Equal opportunity is not the same as equal outcomes. Saying it's good to create a system where everyone has the same opportunity doesn't mean we should do everything we can to make sure everyone accomplishes the same thing. It's just, I want my daughters, I want my kids to be able to pursue their dreams and do what they feel called to do. But I don't feel like I have to force things to make sure that it's always the same outcome. I have to acknowledge that, generally speaking, big populations, there is a difference between men and women. And men, again, testosterone, they tend to be more driven. They have less interest in raising kids. They have more desire for career. There's probably good reason why there is some disparity. Some of it is broken systems. Some of it is male dominance and impressions, yes. But a lot of it is also just that we are different. And pretending like we're not different isn't healthy or good. And I was like today, like, hormone therapy and surgery to create, if women need hormone therapy and surgery to be like men, that's just proof that they're not biologically like men. And when everything is just, again, oppression, and the only reason we're not equal is because of what they're doing rather than what might be real in us, that's not healthy. So the bad side of feminism is when it goes to this point of denying difference and trying to erase it or get rid of it. Because as a Christian, I believe that in some of the differences are inherent to who God made us to be. And this brings us to what we try to do every week through these chapters, and what your authors do is look for a healthier approach. We find the good. Feminism is needed because there have been problems, and there continue to be some problems, but there's also a way you can take it too far and miss something that's actually inherently not bad about it. So here's a healthier approach. Number one, I fully embrace feminism as the idea of equality. And I want my daughters to be free to live their lives however they want to. I want that for the world. I want that for my kids. I want to speak to my daughters and raise them up in a way that they believe that if there's something on their heart they want to do, they can accomplish it. Now, if they tell me they want to play in the NBA, I might be like, not happening. But if they want to be doctors or lawyers, or if one of my daughters wants to be a pastor, I'm going to encourage her to do it. I don't want them to have some kind of Christian guilt that they're not a good Christian woman if they actually want to pursue a career. If they want to, that's fine. But on the other side, I'm not going to do this societal pseudo-feminist guilt it's bad to want to stay home. If my daughters want to raise kids and be moms, like many of you, go, awesome, great. A healthier approach says the part of feminism that encourages equal opportunities means whatever God's leading you to, that's okay. And so that's what I want. A healthier approach also, especially for men, but also for women, but especially for men, I think, is to understand that a lot of the reason why feminism has gone so far is because of the failure of men. And we have created that problem. And so I think even just raising a son, and many of you have boys at home, raising them up to be the kinds of men that God created them to be, to build a world that loves, cherishes, respects women, and opens opportunities for them. I think if men did a better job being the men God called them to be, who truly respected and honored women, we wouldn't have so many problems with the far extreme forms of feminism. So as a parent, I'm both wanting to encourage my daughters to pursue what's in their heart. I'm also wanting to parent my son to understand what it means to love and respect women. And then maybe the most important thing, though, and I'll end with this, is just looking at this issue primarily through the lens of Scripture, God's Word. And according to Scripture, there are differences between men and women. God created them male and female. And there are certain roles within the home that God sort of said, generally speaking, I've created women for this and men for this. And that's okay, because when he looked at that and he did it, he called it good. And so sometimes we're like, oh, men need to be more passionate about babies. Like, do they? Women need to be more excited about being CEOs of companies. Do they? Well, if they are, great. But it appears that God, generally speaking, created humans a certain way, that there's this maternal caregiver in the home, and then there's the warrior breadwinner in the home, and the two work together as partners, sharing some things, but also having different goals and different passions. Generally speaking, there's a spectrum for all of this. And I can acknowledge that's generally true and that God called it good. And so there's no male and female when it comes to following Jesus, when being a Christian, I don't believe. But maybe to family structure and what it means in a home, it's good to look at this and say, I think God created this. And we can discuss and celebrate differences without oppressing or making people feel like they don't belong. We can discuss inherent differences in men and women, but still encourage our daughters to pursue whatever they have their heart set on. That's okay. There's room here for a middle ground and a balance. It's not about fighting to make men and women identical. It's not about fighting to demonize men or make them bad. It's not about making women feel guilty or wanting to stay home. It's about saying, look, generally speaking, seems to be the way that God created us. So there's always going to be some difference. But a healthy culture and a healthy family and a healthy society ensures equality and fairness and battles oppression, intimidation, violence at all forms, at all times. And that's a form of feminism that I'm behind, and I want to be behind. I want all of you to be behind as parents. Heavy topic. I'm sure you're gonna have some great discussions about this, but look forward to hearing where it goes. And we have 1 week left. So yeah, it's been a great semester, and I'm glad we'll do this with you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you then. Bye.